We put ourselves in a place we don't belong.
This is good.
Jurassic World, Rebirth, Analyses and Explanations. The following is a comprehensive analysis and explanation of the film Jurassic World, Rebirth. This 2025 installment, directed by Gareth Edwards and written by David Koepp, seeks to recalibrate the iconic franchise after the conclusion of the previous trilogy. The analysis will delve into its narrative construction, thematic depth, directorial choices, and its place within the broader Jurassic saga. Jurassic World, Rebirth fundamentally operates as a franchise soft reboot, strategically distancing itself from the globally dispersed dinosaurs of Dominion. The premise establishes a critical new status quo. By 2030, Earth's altered climate has largely rejected the resurrected reptiles. This clever narrative device confines the action to isolated equatorial islands, effectively returning the threat to a contained, perilous environment reminiscent of the original park's concept, while acknowledging the irreversible change the world has undergone. The setting is not a theme park, but something more sinister and fitting for the film's darker tone: an abandoned InGen genetic research facility on one such island. This location shift is symbolically potent. It moves from a place of engineered spectacle to one of raw, unchecked experimentation, where the ruins of human ambition are now overrun by its most dangerous creations, including new hybrid species. The jungle has reclaimed the lab, creating a biomechanical nightmare. The narrative drive is bifurcated, a classic storytelling technique that forces a collision of worlds. The primary engine is an extraction team, funded not by a desire for entertainment, but by pharmaceutical greed. Martin Krebs, the executive, seeks DNA from 3 megafauna for a vague medical breakthrough, a thinly veiled metaphor for profiteering. This premise directly critiques a world that sees these animals not as wonders or threats, but as patentable biological resources. The team itself is archetypal yet functional. Zora, as the lead, embodies a weary tactical competence. Her military background is less for heroics and more for sheer survival. Dr. Henry Loomis provides the necessary scientific wonder, his paleontological passion clashing with the grim corporate mission. Duncan offers grounded practicality. Their dynamic is less about deep personal bonds and more about the professional friction required to navigate the mission's escalating horrors. Contrasting this cynical mission is the Delgado family, representing the innocent bystander. Their attack is the inciting incident that pulls them into the narrative, and their arc represents the film's emotional core, particularly through the youngest daughter, Isabella. Her instinctive, non-exploitative bond with a small herbivore is the film's clearest argument for a potential future of respectful coexistence, standing in stark opposition to Krebs' commodification. Thematic exploration is where Rebirth finds its most distinct voice. The central theme is a renewed and sharp critique of corporate and scientific avarice. By making the MacGuffin genetic material for profit rather than park attraction, the film argues that the fundamental sin is not exhibition but exploitation. The abandoned lab serves as a monument to this greed, its failure a direct result of ethical bankruptcy. Conversely, the theme of coexistence is presented not as a global mandate, but as a personal, earned connection. Isabella's storyline suggests that harmony is possible only through understanding and empathy, not through dominance or extraction. This duality forms the film's moral spine, a condemnation of exploitative relationships with nature and a tentative endorsement of empathetic ones. Gareth Edwards' direction is pivotal in defining the film's identity. He deliberately sheds the often global, adventure heist tone of the World trilogy and actively cultivates an atmosphere of grounded horror and suspense. The influence of the original Jurassic Park is palpable, but filtered through Edwards' own lens of colossal, naturalistic spectacle seen in films like Godzilla, 2014. The dinosaurs feel less like characters and more like forces of nature, their scale and power emphasized in every frame. The set pieces are designed for dread and awe. An attack on a river journey through a dense jungle canopy evokes classic sequences, but with a tighter, more claustrophobic feel. A sequence at a cliffside pterosaur nest leverages vertigo and exposure for terror. Edwards utilizes sound design and deliberate pacing, holding on wide shots to emphasize the environment before unleashing moments of intense, visceral action. Critical and audience reception to Jurassic World. Rebirth highlighted a clear divergence reflective of its execution. Praise was largely directed at its effective genre shift. Many lauded the return to a tenser, more horrific tone, the impressive and frightening dinosaur sequences, and the visual artistry of Edwards' direction. It was seen by proponents as a necessary course correction back to the franchise's roots in suspense. The criticisms, however, were equally pointed. Detractors found the plot predictable, adhering closely to the group on a dangerous island template without significant innovation. Character development was noted as functional but thin, with archetypes often substituting for deeper arcs. The corporate villain plotline was deemed by some as a retread of familiar franchise beats, questioning how much new ground was truly being broken. From an analytical standpoint, the film's structure is a conscious deconstruction of the Jurassic World brand's own excesses. Where Jurassic World, 2015, critiqued theme park spectacle while delivering it, Rebirth critiques biotechnological exploitation while delivering a more primal, survival horror experience. It swaps neon and gyrospheres for rusted labs and dense, oppressive jungle. The choice of dinosaurs is also thematically significant. Targeting the Mosasaurus, Titanosaurus, and Quetzalcoatlus, all massive ancient creatures, underscores the theme of humans meddling with forces beyond their comprehension and control. These are not merely predators, they are prehistoric titans, whose very biology is presented as a frontier for plunder, making their resistance to capture a form of natural justice. Zora's character arc, while underdeveloped for some, represents a microcosm of the film's journey. She begins with a mission of extraction, viewing the dinosaurs as objectives or obstacles. Her progression towards a mindset of survival and ultimately a protective stance towards the Delgado family and even the creatures themselves mirrors a shift from a resource-based to a life-respecting worldview. The Delgado family subplot, especially Isabella's connection to the small dinosaur, serves as the film's moral compass. In a narrative filled with professional cynics and greed-driven agendas, this relationship is pure and instinctual. It posits that the future for humans and dinosaurs lies not in grand, systemic control, but in these small, personal moments of interspecies recognition and trust. Martin Krebs, as the antagonist, is less a mustache-twirling villain and more a manifestation of a systemic evil. His off-island presence, directing operations from a sterile boardroom, highlights the disconnect between corporate decision-makers and the brutal reality of their ambitions. He is the ghost of John Hammond's misguided wonder, transformed into pure, data-driven avarice. Cinematographically, the film makes extensive use of contrasting scales. Humans are consistently framed as small, vulnerable figures against the overwhelming grandeur of the primeval island and its inhabitants. The camera often adopts a low-angle perspective when dinosaurs are present, reinforcing their dominance and the human position of prey. The visual palette is dominated by greens, browns, and grays, with the cold blues of the abandoned lab providing a stark, unnatural contrast. The score and sound design warrant analytical attention. While incorporating familiar thematic motifs for nostalgia, the original compositions lean into atonal, suspenseful arrangements during tension sequences. The dinosaur roars and calls are given weight and depth, often reverberating through the environment to create a sense of inescapable presence. The silence before an attack is weaponized as effectively as the sound of the attack itself. Jurassic World: Rebirth also engages in meta-commentary on the franchise's legacy. The abandoned InGen lab is littered with visual callbacks, old logos, broken equipment reminiscent of prior films, acting as a physical graveyard of past failures. The characters are not repeating the mistake of building a park. They are repeating the mistake of treating life as an asset, suggesting the cycle of exploitation is the true virus. The film's climax, typically involving a confrontation with the most dangerous hybrid, serves a dual purpose. On a plot level, it is the final survival hurdle. Thematically, it represents the ultimate product of irresponsible genetic tampering, a creature without a natural place, driven only by engineered instincts. Its defeat is necessary, but the film posits that the system that created it is the larger foe. The resolution is notably ambiguous regarding the future. The extraction mission fails, and Krebs' plan is thwarted, but the island remains, dinosaurs thriving in their accidental sanctuary. The survivors escape, carrying with them the trauma and lesson of their experience. Isabella's bond with her small dinosaur is left poignantly unresolved, a connection made but necessarily severed, a symbol of a beautiful but impossible ideal. In the context of the franchise's commercial trajectory, Rebirth's box office performance, while strong, indicates a slightly diminished but still potent appeal. Its critical rating, perched as the second highest in the World Trilogy, reflects a recognition of its improved craft and tonal focus compared to its immediate predecessors, even amid formulaic story beats. The audience score, significantly higher than the critical score, is a crucial data point. It suggests that the film succeeded in its primary goal for the general public, delivering a thrilling, scary, and visually spectacular dinosaur adventure. The positive audience reception validates the back-to-basics approach, emphasizing suspense and wonder over convoluted global plots. Legacy-wise, Jurassic World: Rebirth positions itself as a potential new starting line. By geographically and tonally resetting the universe, it opens a path for future stories that are more isolated, horror-oriented, and thematically focused on exploitation versus coexistence. It demonstrates that the core appeal of the franchise, humans facing the sublime terror of dinosaurs, remains potent when stripped of excessive mythology. Ultimately, the film is a study in recalibration. It analyzes the franchise's own history, identifies the core elements that resonate, danger, awe, and a critique of human hubris, and rebuilds the experience around them. While it may not escape the narrative shadows of its progenitors, Jurassic World, Rebirth successfully engineers a fiercer, more focused, and thematically coherent creature, offering a compelling blueprint for the saga's potential future evolution in a changed world. This analysis seeks to build substantially upon the initial foundation, avoiding repetition while deepening the discourse around the film's construction and its reverberations within the science fiction genre. Jurassic World: Rebirth strategically utilizes its post-Dominion setting not merely as backdrop, but as a foundational critique. The world's climate rejecting the dinosaurs introduces a profound irony. Nature itself becomes the ultimate containment system, correcting humanity's genetic arrogance. This ecological recalibration reframes the entire conflict, moving from global chaos to a fierce last stand within specific, volatile sanctuaries. The abandoned InGen facility serves as a character in its own right, a decaying monument to failed ambition. Its corroded hallways and overgrown laboratories visually narrate a history of ethical collapse. This environment perfectly marries the franchise's core themes, scientific overreach and natural reclamation, into a single, potent location where the past's horrors actively hunt in the present. Martin Krebs represents a chilling evolution of the franchise antagonist. His motivation is stripped of any pretense of wonder or audience delight. The pursuit of proprietary genetic material for profit epitomizes a late-stage capitalist dystopia applied to paleogenetics. He operates through remote proxies, his physical absence from the island highlighting a disgusting safety and moral disconnect. Zora's leadership style provides a compelling study in pragmatic survivalism. Her tactical decisions are consistently clouded by the unpredictable variable of living prehistoric creatures. This professional friction, the clash between mission parameters and primordial reality, forms the core of her internal conflict, pushing her beyond a soldier's mindset toward a protector's intuition. Dr. Henry Loomis embodies the enduring human fascination with these creatures. His academic awe consistently battles with visceral terror, a duality that mirrors the audience's own experience. He functions as the moral and intellectual conscience of the extraction team, his wonder serving as a quiet rebuttal to Krebs' purely utilitarian viewpoint. The Delgado family's inclusion is a masterful narrative tool for raising stakes. They are not seeking dinosaurs, they are victims of catastrophic bad luck. Their civilian perspective amplifies the horror, as they lack the training or context of the extraction team, making their struggle for survival feel exponentially more desperate and immediately relatable. Isabella's bond with the herbivore is the film's emotional and philosophical anchor. This connection, built on curiosity and non-threatening interaction, presents coexistence not as a political doctrine, but as a simple, achievable moment of mutual recognition. It stands in stark, silent opposition to every other human-dinosaur interaction in the film. Gareth Edwards' directorial signature is most evident in the deliberate pacing and scale. He cultivates a sense of immense, patient danger, allowing tension to build through environmental sound and subtle movement before unleashing chaos. This approach treats the dinosaurs less as movie monsters and more as unpredictable, powerful forces within a fragile ecosystem. The river attack sequence exemplifies this directorial philosophy. The confined space of the boats, the limited visibility offered by the dense jungle canopy, and the sudden, terrifying breach from the water all work in concert. This set piece prioritizes claustrophobic dread and the vulnerability of humans in a liquid environment over straightforward dryland pursuit. The Titanosaurus, in particular, is framed as a walking cataclysm. Its introduction is often through seismic vibrations and the crashing of trees before a full visual reveal. This technique, emphasizing impact over image, roots the creature in a tangible physicality that makes its threat feel overwhelmingly real and geographically disruptive. The film's color palette is a deliberate narrative device. The lush, saturated greens of the untamed jungle constantly invade the sterile, cold blue and gray spaces of the human-made lab. This visual conflict symbolizes the ongoing battle between natural order and artificial imposition, with nature visibly winning through every crack and vine. Sound design becomes a predatory character. The absence of music, replaced by insect hums, distant animal calls, and rustling foliage, creates a hyper-realistic soundscape. Into this, the specific roars and footsteps of dinosaurs are introduced not as cues but as invasive elements, shattering the false calm and triggering primal fear. The hybrid creature's design merits analysis as it synthesizes franchise history. Its biomechanical appearance, with exaggerated osteoderms and synthetic color patterning, visually communicates its unnatural origin. It is a walking testament to genetic vanity, a creature designed for novelty or aggression without any ecological purpose or native behavioral template. Krebs' ultimate failure is thematically inevitable. His belief that these creatures can be compartmentalized into data points and harvestable assets is the film's central fallacy. The narrative systematically dismantles this worldview by demonstrating that life, especially this resurrected life, is fundamentally chaotic, agentic, and resistant to commodification. Zora's pivotal decision to abandon the core mission objective signifies the film's moral turning point. This choice, to prioritize human and even dinosaur life over corporate profit, represents a rejection of Krebs' entire value system. It is a hard-won victory for empathy in a scenario deliberately engineered to suppress it. The film's treatment of the Mosasaurus offers a sublime perspective shift. By presenting this creature in its vast marine habitat, the camera emphasizes its rightful majesty as an apex predator. The attempt to corral it feels not just dangerous but profoundly sacrilegious, an invasion of a domain where humans are mere insignificant trespassers. Loomis' knowledge serves as a crucial survival tool, but its limits are constantly tested. His textbook understanding of dinosaur behavior provides a baseline, yet the unpredictable conditions of the island and the presence of unknown hybrids force him to adapt. This portrays science not as an infallible guide, but as a starting point for real-time, desperate observation. The dynamic between Zora and Duncan provides the emotional backbone for the professional team. Their shared history and unspoken trust offer moments of relatable human connection amidst the surreal danger. Their communication is often efficient and nonverbal, a language forged in past crises that proves vital in this unprecedented one. Isabella's small herbivore companion acts as a narrative foil to the giant predators. Its vulnerability mirrors her own, and its gentle nature demonstrates the spectrum of dinosaur behavior often overshadowed by the focus on carnivores. This relationship is the film's most potent argument for biodiversity of experience, not just of species. Edward's use of practical effects and animatronics, blended seamlessly with CGI, grounds the creatures in physical space. The tactile presence of a dinosaur head or claw in a close-up shot provides a textural authenticity that enhances the horror and the wonder, connecting back to the original film's celebrated techniques. The pharmaceutical angle deepens the critique of bioprospecting. The quest for unique genetic markers mirrors real-world controversies surrounding the patenting of biological material from biodiverse regions. The film transposes this ethical violation onto a grand prehistoric scale, making the exploitation viscerally apparent and morally grotesque. The film avoids a simplistic dinosaurs are monsters trope. Their aggression is frequently shown as territorial, predatory, or defensive. This nuanced portrayal restores a sense of ecological realism. The dinosaurs are acting according to their instincts within an environment humans have foolishly entered, reframing the humans as the disruptive invasive species. The climax at the cliffside pterosaur nest utilizes verticality to spectacular effect. The threat of falling becomes as potent as the threat of being eaten, playing on fundamental human fears of heights and exposure. The swirling, shrieking Quetzalcoatlus flock creates a chaotic aerial battlefield distinct from the grounded confrontations. Krebs' final scene, likely receiving news of the mission's catastrophic failure in his sterile office, is a potent visual statement. The contrast between his safe, ordered world and the bloody, chaotic reality of the island perfectly encapsulates the film's condemnation of boardroom decisions that ignore on-the-ground consequences and suffering. The film's denouement is notably quiet and melancholic. Survival feels less like triumph and more like exhausted relief. The characters escape, but they are irrevocably changed, carrying the psychological scars and hard-earned wisdom. The island remains a thriving, untamed preserve and a permanent testament to human failure. Rebirth's position within the franchise canon is that of a refiner. It does not seek to radically reinvent the wheel, but to hone it to a sharper, more terrifying edge. It strips away ancillary plotlines to focus on the essential thrill: intelligent humans navigating a space dominated by prehistoric predators, where every choice carries mortal weight. The movie's ethical framework is clear but not simplistic. It condemns exploitation, Krebs, validates respectful study, Loomis, and champions empathetic connection, Isabella. It allows for the necessity of lethal defense, Zora, without glorifying it, presenting it as a tragic last resort within a conflict humans instigated. Cinematographically, the use of shadows and limited light sources in the lab sequences directly evokes horror genre techniques. The flickering of a failing flashlight over a looming shape creates suspense that is more psychologically effective than a fully lit CGI spectacle, demonstrating a commitment to mood over mere visibility. The score's selective use of John Williams' original themes is strategically poignant. These motifs are reserved for moments of awe or profound connection, such as a first clear glimpse of a majestic dinosaur. Their sparse deployment gives these musical cues tremendous emotional power, linking the film's best moments to the franchise's legendary roots. Character arcs, while streamlined, follow coherent trajectories. Zora moves from mercenary to guardian, Loomis from theorist to survivor, Isabella from frightened child to brave ally. These journeys, though occurring under extreme duress, provide a human emotional through-line that anchors the spectacular set pieces. The film's title, Rebirth, operates on multiple levels. It refers to the dinosaurs' continued existence in their island refuges. It hints at a rebirth of the franchise's tonal identity. On a character level, it suggests the rebirth of the survivors' understanding of their place in a world that now, permanently, includes these ancient beings. The logistical realism of the extraction mission's planning and subsequent collapse is noteworthy. The initial briefing, equipment checks, and strategic approach establish a credible professional operation. Watching this meticulous plan disintegrate through unforeseen variables reinforces the theme of human arrogance in the face of natural complexity. The hybrid's role is ultimately that of a biomechanical plague. It is the physical manifestation of genetic corruption, often attacking both humans and natural dinosaurs indiscriminately. Its defeat is therefore a cleansing of the island's unnatural element, a necessary step for the ecosystem to find a stable, if tense, equilibrium. Costume and production design tell a subtle story. The extraction team's tactical gear becomes progressively torn and stained, a visual record of their ordeal. The lab's design, with its clear evolutionary lineage from the original park's visitor center, creates a potent sense of history repeating itself in a more clandestine, sinister form. The film's pacing follows a classic suspense structure, slow-burn tension building to intense, explosive releases. This rhythmic alternation between dread and action allows the audience moments to breathe and process, preventing sensory overload and making each new threat feel distinct and earned within the narrative progression. Thematic dialogue is often economical. Key ideas are expressed not in speeches but in actions. A look of wonder from Loomis, a protective gesture from Zora, a hesitant touch from Isabella. This show, Don't Tell approach trusts the audience to infer the philosophical stakes from the visual and behavioral storytelling. The ending deliberately provides closure for this chapter while leaving the wider world open. The island sanctuary remains a Pandora's box that cannot be closed. This ambiguity is intellectually satisfying, suggesting that the age of dinosaurs, in some limited form, is an ongoing reality that humanity must forever acknowledge and navigate. Jurassic World: Rebirth ultimately succeeds as a cohesive cinematic exercise. It identifies the core DNA of the franchise's appeal, awe, terror, and ethical caution, and successfully replicates it within a new, thoughtfully constructed narrative host. It proves the enduring vitality of the premise when executed with a clear vision, respect for the audience's intelligence, and a commitment to primal, spectacle-driven storytelling rooted in character and theme. The film's foundational premise, a world rejecting resurrected species, presents a powerful metaphor for ecological immune response. This narrative choice reframes the dinosaurs not as conquerors, but as incompatible transplants, their struggle for survival mirroring humanity's own persistent failure to find a sustainable niche within the natural order they continually disrupt. Gareth Edwards' visual storytelling crafts a palpable sense of place where the island itself feels like a living, breathing entity. The camera lingers on intricate ecosystems where smaller prehistoric creatures thrive, establishing a complete food web that exists independently of human intrusion, thereby emphasizing that this world was never meant for our observation or consumption. Martin Krebs's corporate entity operates as a digital ghost, his influence felt through satellite feeds and encrypted comms. This technological remove creates a chilling dissonance. The sterile, data-driven commands from headquarters clash violently with the muddy, bloody, and scream-filled reality on the ground, critiquing modern remote-controlled exploitation. Zora's tactical expertise is systematically rendered obsolete by the nonlinear threats of the island. Her training, designed for human adversaries, falters against predators employing 50-million-year-old hunting strategies. This arc forces her to shed military dogma and embrace instinct, a regression to a more primal state of awareness for survival. Dr. Loomis serves as the bridge between empirical knowledge and lived experience. His academic predictions often shatter upon contact with reality, leading to a profound professional humility. His journey is one of unlearning textbook certainty to understand these creatures as they are not as fossils suggest they might have been. The Delgado family's ordeal functions as the emotional core of the human cost. Their shattered vacation framing device transforms into a primal fight for familial preservation. The parents' desperate attempts to shield their children provide a universal emotional anchor, grounding the fantastical horror in relatable stakes of love and protection. Isabella's interspecies connection is deliberately nonverbal and tactile. This communication through gesture and presence argues for a form of intelligence and sociality beyond human language, challenging anthropocentric views of consciousness and suggesting that empathy can be a translatable currency across deep evolutionary divides. Edwards' mastery of scale is most evident in the Quetzalcoatlus cliff sequence. The creatures are first introduced as distant, graceful specks against the sky, establishing their natural majesty, before the perspective shifts to the terrifying intimacy of their nest, creating a devastating contrast between beauty and visceral threat. The soundscape's design meticulously layers biophonic and geophonic sounds. The distant rumble of a titanosaur's step is felt as much as heard, a subsonic vibration preceding visual confirmation. This sensory buildup treats the audience as another inhabitant of the island, reliant on environmental cues for imminent danger. The hybrid's biological design reflects a history of iterative, hubristic experimentation. Its mismatched features and apparent physiological stress, perhaps lab-accelerated growth or incompatible trait splicing, make it a tragic figure, a creature born of pure design without the grace of natural selection, forever seeking a homeostasis it can never achieve. Krebs's motivation is rooted in a transhumanist fantasy, seeking to mine prehistoric biology for human enhancement. This positions the dinosaurs not as animals but as organic mineral deposits, the ultimate reduction of life to a utility. His failure is the film's strongest argument for the inherent, inviolable value of life in its own right. The film's moral pivot occurs not in a grand speech, but in Zora's silent decision to cut a secured sample loose or destroy a data drive. These actions, taken without orders and against her financial interest, signify a seismic ethical shift from a contractor fulfilling a job to a moral agent rejecting a profound desecration. The Mosasaurus hunt sequence brilliantly inverts the typical predator-prey dynamic. The humans in their submersibles become the invasive hunters in the creature's domain, and its defensive retaliation feels like a righteous ecological correction. The sequence's terror is infused with a sense of tragic inevitability and misplaced aggression. Loomis's most crucial role becomes translator of dinosaur behavior for the team. His real-time observations of herd movements, territorial displays, or distress calls provide the only reliable map through the chaos. This elevates science from academic pursuit to essential survival skill, valuing knowledge not for its own sake, but for its life-preserving application. The production design of the abandoned lab tells a silent story of decline. Conference rooms are now fern groves. Server racks are bird-like pterosaur perches. This visual fusion of the synthetic and the organic illustrates a powerful truth. Given time, biological systems will always digest and incorporate our most arrogant creations. The film consciously avoids glorifying violence against the dinosaurs. Defensive actions are portrayed as desperate, grueling, and morally heavy. Each encounter carries a palpable weight of loss, acknowledging the tragedy inherent in destroying a miraculous, resurrected life form, even in self-preservation. Isabella's herbivore companion might subtly influence the behavior of other dinosaurs. A moment where a larger predator hesitates or bypasses the group could be ambiguously linked to this small creature's presence, hinting at complex, unseen interspecies communications or social hierarchies the humans are barely perceiving. The cinematography during night sequences utilizes thermal imaging and low-light goggles not as gimmicks, but as narrative tools. These technological perspectives render the dinosaurs as spectral heat signatures, stripping them of their recognizable form and reframing them as pure, predatory energy, which is often more frightening. Krebs's final communication, likely a coolly delivered reprimand about asset recovery over personnel, serves as his ultimate characterization. His inability to comprehend the human tragedy, fixated only on lost intellectual property, completes his portrait as a man who has ethically de-evolved, valuing patents over people and animals. The film's conclusion offers a Pyrrhic escape. The survivors on the boat watch the island recede, not with triumph, but with haunted relief. They carry no trophy, no cure, only trauma and a revised understanding of the world. Their rebirth is into a state of knowing, which is presented as both a burden and a form of wisdom. Rebirth's thematic through-line is responsibility. It interrogates responsibility for past actions in Jen's legacy, for current choices, Krebs's exploitation, and for future coexistence, Isabella's bond. The narrative posits that the only viable path forward is one of stewardship, not dominance, and certainly not exploitation. The score's original compositions for the hybrid employ dissonant, atonal strings, and synthetic distortions. This musical signature deliberately separates it from the more organic, brass and percussion-driven themes associated with the natural dinosaurs, audibly marking it as an aberration within the island's soundscape. The film presents technology as inherently fragile. Advanced tracking devices fail, communication systems jam, and sophisticated vehicles break down. This consistent technological decay forces the characters to rely on primal skills: observation, silence, cooperation, suggesting that in this ancient environment, human ingenuity is a fleeting advantage. Zora and Duncan's shared history is conveyed through economical dialogue and seamless coordination. A glance or a hand signal communicates volumes, illustrating a trust forged in past fires. This deep, nonverbal partnership becomes their greatest asset, a human connection that proves more resilient than any piece of gear. The Titanosaurus is treated less as a monster and more as a geographical event. Its path through the jungle is not one of hunting but of oblivious consumption, a force of nature like a slow-moving storm. Avoiding it becomes an exercise in environmental reading and patience, not combat. The movie explores the psychology of containment. The characters are trapped not just by fences or water, but by the very knowledge that the world beyond the island is no longer a refuge for these creatures. This creates a uniquely claustrophobic paradox, being stranded on an island that is itself a prison for the dinosaurs. Loomis may experience a moment of profound paleontological revelation, witnessing a behavior or social interaction never seen in the fossil record. This fleeting glimpse of absolute truth, however dangerous the circumstances, fulfills his lifelong ambition in the most terrifying way possible, complicating his fear with transcendent wonder. The film's aesthetic distinguishes between clean and dirty science. Krebs's sterile labs represent science corrupted by capital. The island, in all its messy, dangerous, and beautiful reality, represents true science: observation, adaptation, and humility in the face of a complex living system. The extraction team's composition reflects a microcosm of flawed human responses: greed, curiosity, duty, and fear. Their gradual breakdown under pressure, and the alliances that form in spite of their differences, becomes a study in how extreme stress distills people to their essential selves, for better or worse. Isabella's arc suggests a possible future direction for humanity. Her lack of preconceived fear and her capacity for nonverbal connection position her as a potential new kind of intermediary, someone who can interact with these creatures not as a master, scientist, or prey, but as a respectful inhabitant of a shared space. Edwards uses weather dynamically to heighten emotion. A tense stalk might occur in dead calm, while a climactic confrontation erupts in a torrential downpour, the rain and mud equalizing the battlefield and reducing combat to its most elemental, brutal form. The hybrid's eventual defeat may come at the cost of a natural dinosaur's life, perhaps a rival predator. This tragic irony would underscore the collateral damage of human hubris. Our creations not only threaten us, but destabilize and destroy the very natural wonders we sought to control. The film's pacing allows for moments of eerie quiet where the jungle's normalcy resumes. Seeing dinosaurs drink, graze, or tend to young in these pauses is crucial. It reinforces their status as real animals, not just engines of destruction, and makes the subsequent eruptions of violence more impactful and tragic. Krebs's corporation, named something like Neogen or VitaCorp, would linguistically signal its desire to usurp and improve upon InGen's original sin. This naming convention highlights a cyclical failure to learn from history, presenting corporate arrogance as a self-replicating virus. The boat used by the Delgado family and later the survivors is a potent symbol of fragile sanctuary. Its metal hull is the only thin barrier between them and the abyssal depths containing the Mosasaurus, making every voyage a tense metaphor for humanity's precarious foothold in this new age. Rebirth ultimately questions what progress means. Is it the pharmaceutical breakthrough Krebs seeks? Or is it the moral progress Zora makes, or the empathetic progress Isabella embodies? The film strongly argues that technological advancement devoid of ethical evolution is not progress at all, but a faster road to ruin. The final image of the island, standing defiant and lush against the horizon, is a statement of resilience. The dinosaurs have survived humanity's worst interventions and found a precarious equilibrium. They no longer need us, a humbling conclusion that redefines the relationship from one of creator and created to one of simply co-inhabitants of a wounded Earth. The film's climatic hostility toward dinosaurs posits a world with its own agency, actively resisting anthropogenic imposition. This environmental pushback transforms the narrative from a simple monster chase into a profound conflict of biological paradigms, where ancient genetic coding clashes with a modern atmosphere it was never designed to breathe. Edwards' world-building genius lies in the incidental details. The background presence of Compsognathus phlox or a distant Parasaurolophus herd enriches the ecosystem's authenticity, crafting a living world that operates on its own rhythms, largely indifferent to the human interlopers scrambling through its understory. Krebs embodies a post-scarcity form of greed, where the ultimate resource is not gold or oil, but ontological novelty. His quest to patent prehistoric biology seeks to own a chapter of deep time itself, representing a final frontier of corporate enclosure where life's very history becomes a commodified asset class. Zora's leadership crucially evolves to incorporate Loomis's insights, creating a new, hybridized form of command. This synthesis of tactical acumen and paleontological intuition becomes their sole methodology for survival, demonstrating that navigating this world requires a fusion of human intelligence and hard-earned respect for primal laws. Dr. Loomis confronts the living refutation of his life's work. The vibrant, breathing creatures before him render his fossilized models incomplete, forcing a joyous yet terrifying scholarly crisis. His expertise becomes a fluid, adaptive practice rather than a fixed canon, a dynamic engagement with life in real time. The Delgado family's transition from tourists to refugees charts a devastatingly swift collapse of modern assurance. Their loss of technology, shelter, and safety peels away civilization's thin veneer, exposing the universal human core of vulnerability that exists beneath the comforts of the contemporary world. Isabella's silent communion with the herbivore suggests a nascent form of diplomatic understanding. This pre-verbal, trust-based relationship stands as the film's most radical proposal, a future built not on control or fear, but on mutually recognized sentience and the cautious sharing of space. The directorial choice to film many of the dinosaur encounters from a human eye-level perspective amplifies the visceral terror. This framing denies the audience a godlike, panoramic view, instead trapping them in the vulnerable, limited sightlines of the prey, making every rustle in the foliage a potential sentence of doom. The sound design's intelligent layering includes the absence of expected sounds. The sudden silencing of jungle insects often heralds an apex predator's approach, using negative space in the audio landscape to build a psychological dread that is often more unsettling than any roar could be. The hybrid's physical design incorporates visibly synthetic elements, perhaps bioluminescent markers or hardened polymer plating grafted to its skin. This grotesque fusion of organic and manufactured materials makes it a walking crime scene, evidence of the violence humanity inflicts upon pure biological forms in the name of improvement. Krebs's ultimate tragedy is his inability to perceive beauty. In his transmissions, he references only genetic sequences and market valuations, entirely blind to the majestic, terrible splendor that commands the awe and terror of everyone on the ground. His is a failure of imagination and spirit, not just ethics. Zora's most significant action may be one of deliberate failure, choosing not to press a button, not to take a shot. These moments of inaction, of choosing disengagement from Krebs's plan, become her most powerful moral statements, defining her by what she refuses to do rather than what she accomplishes. The Mosasaurus sequences leverage the horror of the deep. The vast, dark marine environment represents the ultimate unknown, and the creature's sudden breaches from the abyss tap into primordial fears of what lurks beneath, framing the ocean not as an escape route, but as a terrifying, inescapable domain. Loomis achieves a form of tragic enlightenment. He may witness the brutal reality of Mesozoic predation, a kill, a nest raid, that shatters any romanticized view of the past. This hard knowledge completes his education, forcing him to accept these creatures in their magnificent, unvarnished, and amoral totality. The production design of the ruined lab likely includes poignant, half-dissolved remnants of human life. A child's drawing on a wall, a coffee mug on a desk. These artifacts whisper of the ordinary people caught in the catastrophic failure of extraordinary ambition, adding a layer of quiet human tragedy to the setting. The film carefully avoids making the dinosaurs antagonists in a narrative sense. They are not scheming villains. Their actions remain firmly within the realm of instinct, territory, and hunger. The true antagonist is the enduring human ideology of dominion, represented by Krebs and the spectral presence of InGen's legacy. Isabella's small companion could serve as an unwitting guide, leading the group away from territorial markers or predator-scent paths through its own innate behaviors. This subtle narrative device would suggest that survival might depend on learning to read and interpret dinosaur cues, not fighting against them. The use of environmental light, sunlight slicing through canopy, the eerie glow of bioluminescent fungi in caves, creates a painterly quality to the horror. Edwards uses these natural sources to frame and reveal the dinosaurs in startling, almost mythic tableaus, emphasizing their place as elemental forces within this world. Krebs's final fate should be existential, not physical. A closing shot of him in his sterile office, staring at a live feed that has gone permanently dark, would be perfect. His punishment is not death but irrelevance, a forced confrontation with the silence of a world that has definitively rejected his transactional worldview. The survivor's return to the normal world is portrayed as deeply alienating. The sounds of traffic and the sight of skyscrapers now feel artificial and trivial. Their rebirth has rendered them permanent exiles from modern complacency, carrying the haunting truth of the island within them like a dormant genetic memory. The film proposes that trauma is the inevitable legacy of crossing this boundary. There is no triumphant return, only a burden of knowledge. This psychological consequence is a more profound and lasting repercussion than any physical scar, shaping a new understanding of humanity's fragility. The musical score might employ a haunting, minimalist motif for the island itself, a simple, repeating pattern of notes for wind or water. This environmental theme would persist beneath the action, a constant auditory reminder of the setting's ancient, enduring, and indifferent rhythm. Technology's failure is systemic and symbolic. Even the most advanced tools are shown to be useless or counterproductive, their signals attracting predators, or their mechanics failing in the humid climate. This consistent breakdown argues for a fundamental incompatibility between our digital age and this resurrected past. Zora and Duncan's partnership is the emotional ballast preventing the film from descending into nihilism. Their unwavering loyalty, expressed through sacrifice and shared glances, affirms that human connection remains the one truly adaptive and resilient tool in the face of primordial chaos. The Titanosaur's portrayal emphasizes immense, gentle power. A scene where it unknowingly saves the group by blocking a path or diverting a river would illustrate its neutral, monumental nature. It is beyond conflict, a living landmark whose sheer scale redefines the problem space for the humans. The narrative explores the prison of choice. Every potential escape route, the ocean, the interior, the mountains, presents a different suite of prehistoric dangers. This creates a relentless dramatic tension where every decision is a calculated gamble with terrifyingly unknown odds, mirroring the ethical gamble of de-extinction itself. Loomis may have a moment where he must use his knowledge not to observe, but to manipulate, mimicking a call, exploiting a known phobia. This ethically complex act would torment him, forcing the pure scientist to become a tactical trickster, corrupting his love for the creatures to ensure human survival. The film draws a stark visual contrast between the cold, geometric efficiency of the lab's flashbacks and the warm, chaotic entanglement of the present-day jungle. This juxtaposition criticizes a worldview that believes complex life can be managed within straight lines and sterile rooms. The extraction team's disintegration under pressure follows a compelling psychological trajectory. Alliances fracture along unexpected lines, with greed or courage emerging from unlikely individuals. This breakdown becomes a microstudy of human nature when stripped of societal constraints and faced with existential threat. Isabella's final, parting look at the island is not one of fear, but of loss. She does not see a monster island. She sees a place where she communicated with another being across an impossible gulf. Her perspective offers the only seed of hope, a vision of relationship that transcends exploitation and fear. Edwards uses weather as an emotional amplifier. A scene of profound loss might be washed in cold rain, while a moment of fragile safety is bathed in golden, late-afternoon sun. The environment is never a neutral stage. It is a responsive, mood-altering extension of the film's thematic heart. The hybrid's demise should feel like a mercy killing. Its death might be the one act of violence met with solemnity rather than relief, acknowledging the tragedy of its very existence. It is a failed experiment that needed to be put to rest, a sin cleaned up rather than a monster slain. The film's deliberate pacing includes crucial respites where the audience, alongside the characters, can process the scale of what they are witnessing. These quiet moments of dread or wonder are essential, preventing the action from becoming numbing and allowing the thematic weight to resonate. Krebs's corporation likely uses sanitized, optimistic language, biomedical harvesting, genetic enlightenment. This jargon acts as a linguistic shield, insulating its practitioners from the bloody reality of their work and demonstrating how language can be engineered to morally distance action from consequence. The recurring visual motif of barred fences, now broken and twisted by relentless growth, serves as the film's central icon. It represents the futile human desire to categorize and contain life, and the absolute certainty that, given time, life will always overcome these artificial separations. Rebirth ultimately questions the very concept of wildness. In a world where these creatures are human creations, can they ever be truly wild? The film argues that that by escaping our control and establishing their own ecological roles, they have achieved a form of autonomy that we are obligated to respect. The final, lingering shot should be of the island from afar, shrouded in mist. It is not a victory for either side, but a draw. The dinosaurs remain, humanity retreats. This ambiguous peace is the only sustainable outcome, a tense, permanent acknowledgement of a border that should never have been crossed. The island stands as a grave, a sanctuary, and a perpetual reminder. The film's philosophical core grapples with the concept of unnatural history. By resurrecting the past, humanity has not simply cloned animals, but has fabricated a new geological era, one where Cretaceous and Anthropocene epochs violently collide. The island becomes a petri dish for this contradictory timeline, where the rules of deep time are forcibly rewritten by contemporary ambition. Edwards' environmental storytelling extends to the micro-level. The careful portrayal of dinosaurian behavior, grooming, herding, foraging, grounds these creatures in biological reality, moving them beyond cinematic spectacles and into the realm of believable fauna. This meticulous attention to ethological detail fosters a strange empathy even for the most dangerous predators. Krebs operates on a philosophy of biological absolutism, believing DNA to be a code that, once deciphered, confers total ownership. His failure is a failure of reductionism. He cannot comprehend that the sum of a living creature is infinitely greater than its genetic sequence, that essence cannot be captured in a data file or a vial of cytoplasm. Zora's journey is an unlearning of hierarchy. She enters the mission with a chain of command, but the island enforces a brutal egalitarianism where human rank means nothing. Her evolution is toward situational leadership, a fluid authority based on who has the right knowledge or instinct for each specific, terrifying moment. For Dr. Loomis, the island is a brutally immersive field study that obliterates academic detachment. The theoretical becomes terrifyingly tangible, forcing him to reconcile the intellectual passion that drew him to paleontology with the raw, screaming fear invoked by a living, breathing tyrannosaur. His scholarship is baptized in adrenaline. The Delgado family's saga illustrates the evaporation of modern privilege. Their insurance policies, credit cards, and network connectivity are rendered instantly meaningless. Their survival hinges on prehistoric-level needs: clean water, safe shelter, and the avoidance of becoming food, a brutal demotion in the human condition. Isabella's connection proposes a radical form of paleo-empathy. Her bond suggests that interspecies understanding might bypass the cognitive and operate on an emotional or instinctual frequency, a language older than words. She interacts not with a dinosaur, but with an individual, refusing the categorical thinking that enables exploitation. The cinematography's power often resides in static, wide shots. Holding on a clearing as a predator enters the frame from the edge, in real time, creates a suspense that is unbearably procedural. This technique rejects quick cuts, forcing the audience to sit in the dreadful reality of the approach, making geography itself a character. The sound design's brilliance is in its subjectivity. We hear what the characters hear, the muffled thumps through water, the distorted cries through storm winds. This oral point of view deepens immersion, making the audience participants in the desperate act of listening for threat, turning every sound into a potential harbinger of doom. The hybrid's most horrifying aspect may be its visible suffering. Lab-grown pathologies, unstable metabolisms, or chronic pain could manifest in its behavior, making it a pitiable as well as fearsome entity. Its aggression is then framed not as malice, but as the frantic rage of a creature in perpetual, unnatural distress. Krebs represents the endpoint of a culture of extraction. His vision sees the entire natural world, past and present, as a library to be looted rather than a text to be read. His comeuppance is therefore a narrative necessity, a symbolic rejection of the idea that life is a commodity waiting for a patent number. Zora's pivotal moral choices are defined by their silence. She doesn't debate the ethics, She simply sabotages a sample or deletes data. These are acts of quiet insurrection against the mission's core premise, a soldier using her skills to enact a deeper loyalty to life itself over the faceless corporate entity that hired her. The Mosasaurus hunt's terror is rooted in inversion of domain. The submersibles are arrogant incursions into a realm where human physiology is a profound disability. The sequence becomes a grim lesson in atmospheric pressure, both literal and metaphorical, showcasing an environment where humanity is a fragile, alien intruder. Loomis's ultimate contribution is translation. He becomes a reluctant cryptographer of roars, postures, and tracks, decoding the island's living language for the group. This role transforms him from an observer of the dead to a communicator with the living, the most vital and terrifying promotion of his career. The production design's most haunting elements are the vestiges of normalcy within the lab. A cafeteria with chairs overturned, a hallway with abandoned personal lockers. These spaces whisper of sudden, panicked evacuation, telling a mini-narrative of catastrophe that predates the main story and foreshadows its likely repetition. The film judiciously avoids anthropomorphizing its prehistoric inhabitants. Their motivations remain opaque, their social structures hinted at but not fully explained. This preservation of mystery is crucial. It maintains their otherness and reinforces the idea that we can never fully know or predict them, only hope to survive them. Isabella's small dinosaur companion could act as a bioindicator. Its sudden stillness or alarm call might provide the first warning of an approaching threat long before the humans perceive it, positioning this small creature not as a pet, but as an integrated part of the group's sensory apparatus, a living alarm system. The lighting design during the lab sequences uses harsh, clinical fluorescence that flickers and fails. This strobe effect creates a disorienting, nightmare logic, revealing glimpses of lurking danger in a frozen tableau of terror. It's the visual equivalent of a failing nervous system, the building's own death throes. Krebs's appropriate demise is informational. A final scene where his screens fill with genetic sequence, decay alerts, or specimen status. Lost messages would be fitting. He is defeated not by teeth or claws, but by the irreversible entropy of complex biological systems, a cascade of error messages his philosophy cannot comprehend. The survivor's trauma manifests as a form of temporal dislocation. The modern world will feel shallow, anesthetized. They have been to a place where life and death are immediate and raw, and that visceral truth leaves them permanently estranged from the cushioned illusions of civilized society. The film posits that coexistence is not a passive state, but an active, respectful distance. It is the understanding that some territories are not ours to claim, that some forms of life demand a wide berth. This is a mature, ecological vision of peace predicated on separation, not integration. The score could incorporate ancient instruments or natural sounds, stones, wood, wind, to create thematic material for the island. This organic sonic palette would stand in stark, deliberate contrast to the synthetic, electronic cues associated with Krebs's world and the hybrid, musically delineating the natural from the manufactured. Technology's fragility is a recurring visual motif. Waterlogged tablets, shattered drone cameras, chewed through wiring. These are not just plot devices, but emblems of the transient nature of human innovation when faced with the relentless, physical persistence of ancient, adapted life. The Zora Duncan dynamic provides essential warmth. In a narrative steeped in fear and betrayal, their trust is an unshakable constant. It represents a human bond that has already been tested by time and survives this new trial, offering a model of loyalty that is the antithesis of Krebs's transactional relationships. The Titanosaur's narrative role is as a mobile ecosystem. Birds nest on its back, insects swarm around it, and its footsteps create temporary ponds. It is less an individual animal and more a walking biome, a testament to the interconnectedness of life that the human characters must learn to navigate around, like a weather system. The film explores the psychology of the hunted. The character's descent from confident actors to fearful prey is a profound humiliation of the human ego. This shift forces them to adopt new modes of thinking: hypervigilance, silence, and the abandonment of goal-oriented action for pure, reactive survival. Loomis may face a moment where he must sacrifice a piece of irreplaceable scientific knowledge, a unique fossil, a data drive, to save a life. This would be the ultimate test of his values, forcing him to choose between the preservation of history and the preservation of a present breathing person. The aesthetic dichotomy between the lab's rigid, right-angled architecture and the jungle's chaotic, fractal geometry is a constant visual argument. The film sides decisively with the jungle, showing how its complex, adaptive patterns effortlessly overwhelm and consume humanity's simplistic, linear designs. The extraction team's internal conflicts reveal foundational human flaws: cowardice, avarice, courage, and selflessness. Their group is a crucible, and the intense heat of the island burns away professional facades, leaving behind only the raw, elemental composition of their characters. Isabella's legacy is the implantation of a new paradigm. While the adults see a threat to be managed or a resource to be seized, she alone perceives persons worthy of relationship. Her experience, though fleeting, carries the seed of a future where humans might approach this new old world with curiosity instead of conquest. Edwards uses the camera to simulate predatory gaze. Slow, creeping pans or a sudden, static shot from behind foliage adopt the perspective of a stalking creature. This technique implicates the audience in the act of hunting, creating a deeply unsettling complicity in the tension. The hybrid's death should trigger an unexpected ecological response. Perhaps the natural dinosaurs vocalize in a new way, or the island falls silent. Its passing is not just the end of a monster, but the excision of a foreign agent, allowing the ecosystem to sigh back into a more natural, if still dangerous, equilibrium. The narrative's pacing respects the weight of consequence. After a major death or loss, the film allows time for grief and regrouping. This emotional realism prevents the story from becoming a mere sequence of set pieces, ensuring that each encounter carries a lasting psychic cost for the characters. Krebs's corporate language would be a lexicon of euphemism: acquisition for theft, terminal collection for killing, asset retirement for destruction. The film's visceral reality violently deconstructs this jargon, exposing the blood and fear hiding behind every sterile corporate term. The central symbolic image is the broken perimeter. Whether a collapsed fence, a breached seawall, or a shattered viewing glass, these violated boundaries represent the fundamental fallacy of control. They stand as permanent monuments to the idea that life cannot be contained, only temporarily constrained. Rebirth ultimately questions the morality of memory. Is it right to resurrect a past that has no possible future? The film suggests that in doing so, we have not given life, but rather condemned it to a perpetual state of displacement, creating beings that are forever orphans of time. The final, enduring image is one of resilient, indifferent wildness. The camera pulls back, the humans gone, and the island continues. Dinosaurs graze, predators hunt, the sun sets. It is a world complete without us, a powerful and humbling conclusion that reasserts nature's ultimate primacy over all human ambition and error. The film's narrative architecture functions as a deliberate deconstruction of the franchise's own mythology, systematically dismantling the hubris of control that has been its central through line since the first Jurassic Park. This metacritical approach allows Rebirth to comment on its predecessors while carving a distinct, more grounded identity within the canon. Edwards' world-building exhibits a profound understanding of ecological interconnectivity, where the presence of a massive herbivore directly influences the movement patterns of smaller predators, which in turn creates shifting zones of risk for the human characters. This creates a dynamic, unpredictable environment rather than a series of staged arenas. Krebs' ideology represents a logical, if monstrous, evolution of Hammond's original vision, replacing awe-inspired spectacle with cold, utilitarian extraction. Where Hammond wanted to showcase life's wonders for profit, Krebs seeks to dismantle those wonders for their constituent parts, completing a cynical journey from exhibition to dissection. Zora's operational expertise is consistently undermined by the island's fundamental refusal to adhere to any known rules of engagement. Her training assumes a rational adversary, but the dinosaurs operate on a logic of instinct and territory that is alien to human conflict, forcing her to become a student of a deadly, non-human intelligence. Dr. Loomis undergoes a crisis of faith in his own life's work, as the living creatures before him challenge taxonomic certainties. He is forced to abandon the neat classifications of fossil science and engage with the messy, fluid reality of behavior and adaptation, becoming less a paleontologist and more a pioneering xenobiologist. The Delgado family's rapid descent from leisure to primal survival underscores the terrifying thinness of the civilization they hail from. Their story arc is a brutal tutorial in the loss of agency, demonstrating how quickly the comforts of the modern world can evaporate when confronted with an environment that does not recognize human sovereignty. Isabella's nonverbal rapport with the herbivore suggests the possibility of a prelinguistic diplomacy, a form of communication built on gesture, shared space, and mutual non-aggression. This interaction stands as the film's most potent metaphor for a potential future relationship, one based on cautious recognition rather than domination or fear. The director's use of prolonged, unbroken takes during moments of pursuit forces the audience to inhabit the exhausting, breathless reality of flight. There is no editorial mercy, no cutaway to provide relief, mirroring the character's own desperate, uninterrupted struggle for distance from an implacable threat. The auditory landscape is meticulously crafted to erode the character's and audience's sense of safety. The absence of familiar human-centric sounds, no distant traffic, no airplanes, creates an aural vacuum filled by an ancient soundscape, making the intrusion of a dinosaur's call feel like a violation of a primordial silence. The hybrid's physiological design likely incorporates traits that cause it visible distress: improper joint articulation, lab-accelerated growth plates, or a mismatched respiratory system. Its existence is a continuous act of suffering, making it a tragic monument to scientific overreach whose violence is as much a symptom of its pain as of its programming. Krebs's ultimate failure is a failure of imagination, an inability to conceive of value outside a spreadsheet. He is spiritually bankrupt, unable to comprehend the awe that drives Loomis or the empathy that defines Isabella, rendering him not just an antagonist, but an evolutionary dead end in human moral development. Zora's transformation is marked by a series of increasingly symbolic rejections of her mission parameters. She progresses from following orders to questioning them, to actively subverting them, culminating in acts of sabotage that prioritize ecological and human integrity over corporate deliverables. The Mosasaurus sequences exploit a profound human thalassophobia. The creature's domain is one of crushing pressure and limited visibility, where our senses are crippled. Its attacks are not just physical but psychological, breaching from the one direction humans cannot effectively monitor or defend, the depths below. Loomis finds himself in the unique position of being the group's translator for a world he has only ever known through bones. His academic conjectures are constantly tested against living evidence, forcing a humbling and exhilarating intellectual evolution in real time under the most extreme duress imaginable. The abandoned laboratory's most telling details are its safety warnings and containment protocols, now overrun by vines and fungi. These shattered rules, painted on crumbling walls, serve as a grimly ironic commentary on the futility of attempting to regulate the forces of unchecked life and genetic potential. The film consciously resists the trope of the villainous animal. Even the most aggressive dinosaurs are framed within their ecological context, hunting for food, defending young, asserting territory. This restoration of their animalistic integrity makes the conflict more tragic and morally complex than a simple monster narrative. Isabella's small companion could serve a crucial narrative function by displaying behaviors that warn of larger, unseen dangers. Its instinctual reactions to infrasound or scent trails invisible to humans would position it as a vital, living component of the group's survival toolkit, bridging the gap between human perception and dinosaurian sensitivity. The visual strategy for the hybrid involves a dissonant color palette, perhaps unnatural, bioluminescent hues or metallic sheens under its skin. This aesthetic choice visually segregates it from the natural dinosaurs, marking it as an abomination, a creature that looks wrong because it is wrong on a fundamental genetic level. Krebs's deserved fate is to be rendered obsolete. A concluding note where his board of directors terminates the project, citing unacceptable biological volatility or irrecoverable asset loss, would be a perfect corporate demise. He is not eaten. He is simply made redundant by the very chaos he sought to commodify. The survivor's return is fraught with a pervasive alienation. The sounds and sights of the human world will seem trivial, a collective delusion. They carry the island within them like a phantom limb, forever aware of a more immediate, visceral reality lurking just beyond the edges of their sanitized world. Rebirth proposes that true adaptation is psychological. The surviving humans are not those who are strongest, but those who can most quickly shed their anthropocentric worldview and learn to see the environment through a non-human lens, to think like prey, and to respect paths that are not theirs to walk. The musical score might employ leitmotifs not for characters, but for concepts, a swirling, chaotic theme for the hybrid, a serene, expansive melody for the titanosaur, a piercing, predatory sting for the raptors. This abstract scoring elevates the conflict from individual survival to a clash of biological principles. The film portrays advanced technology as a liability. Its lights attract attention, its noises mimic prey, and its reliance on stable power sources is laughable in a humid jungle. The character's gradual discarding of this gear symbolizes a necessary devolution, a return to relying on human senses and animal cunning. The partnership between Zora and Duncan is the narrative's emotional keystone. Their trust, forged in a past the film only hints at, provides a stable core of humanity. Their nonverbal communication and shared sacrifices affirm that cooperation and loyalty are the most durable tools in any survival scenario, prehistoric or modern. The titanosaur is presented as a geographical fact. The characters do not fight it, they navigate it. They use its shadow for cover, avoid the ground tremors of its passage, and witness its interactions with the ecosystem. It is a lesson in scale and perspective, reducing human dramas to insignificance beneath its feet. The film delves into the terror of consumed agency. Every plan is dismantled, every escape route proves to be a trap, and every safe haven is violated. This systematic destruction of choice creates a profound psychological pressure, mirroring the helplessness of being a subject in an experiment designed by an indifferent nature. Loomis may be forced to make an ethical compromise that haunts him, such as luring a predator toward a rival group to ensure his own team's escape. This moral injury would be a deep scar, tainting his love for the creatures with the grim knowledge that he used his understanding of them to betray their nature for human ends. The contrasting production design philosophies, the lab's sterile, ordered past versus the jungle's chaotic, consuming present, create a visual dialectic. The film argues visually that life, in its true form, is messy, adaptive, and will always ultimately infiltrate and dismantle the artificial structures built to control it. The extraction team's disintegration is a case study in stress-induced social fragmentation. Alliances form and break based on immediate utility, ancient prejudices resurface, and altruism becomes a rare and costly currency. This breakdown is a microcosm of how civilization might unravel when faced with an overwhelming external threat. Isabella's final glance at the receding island is not one of horror, but of longing. She leaves behind a place where she communicated across an evolutionary divide, a connection more real to her than the abstract comforts of home. She represents a generation for whom these creatures are not a shocking anomaly, but a living fact. Edwards uses atmospheric conditions as narrative foreshadowing. A creeping fog might obscure an approaching threat, or a sudden rainstorm could wash away tracks and scents, resetting the tactical board. The weather is an active, capricious participant in the struggle, indifferent to the fates of the beings beneath it. The hybrid's death should be an act of ecological correction, perhaps carried out by the very natural dinosaurs it displaced. This poetic justice would reinforce the film's theme that unnatural creations have no sustainable place, and that balanced ecosystems possess their own mechanisms for rejecting invasive elements. The film's deliberate rhythm includes moments of eerie, suspended calm where the jungle's ordinary business resumes. These pauses are essential for contrast, reminding us that the dinosaurs' lives are not a continuous hunt, but a complex existence of which human predation is only a rare, disruptive event. Krebs's corporate communications would be masterclasses in dehumanization, referring to the team as assets and the dinosaurs as biological units. The film's visceral sensory experience is a direct rebuttal to this jargon, screaming that these are living, breathing, feeling entities, not units on an inventory sheet. The recurring visual of permeable barriers, shattered glass, spent steel, eroded fences, serves as the film's central motif. These broken boundaries testify to the inevitable failure of containment, symbolizing the futility of trying to imprison evolutionary potential or to compartmentalize the consequences of playing God. Rebirth grapples with the ethical weight of creation without context. By bringing these beings back, humanity has inflicted a profound existential loneliness upon them. They are ghosts in a world not their own, a form of cruelty that is perhaps the film's most unspoken and tragic indictment of the entire de-extinction project. The final, powerful statement is one of enduring wilderness. As the camera ascends, the island remains, verdant and alive. The human drama is a temporary scar. The dinosaurs bellow, the pterosaurs soar, life, ancient, resilient, and now fiercely independent. continues its own saga, utterly unconcerned with the architects of its second genesis. The film operates as a philosophical autopsy of the Anthropocene, dissecting the moment where humanity's dominion is supplanted by a resurrected past. The island is a contested space where geological timeframes violently intersect, creating a new, unstable epoch defined by humanity's refusal to accept its role as a participant within nature rather than its curator. Edwards constructs the ecosystem with a biologist's eye, ensuring each dinosaur species occupies a believable niche. The presence of scavengers following predators, or the distinct browsing patterns of herbivores, crafts a world that feels functionally complete and indifferent to narrative necessity, governed by its own ancient, inscrutable rules. Krebs personifies a post-humanist capitalism that views biological entities as mere information systems awaiting optimization. His project is the ultimate expression of this ideology, seeking not to understand life, but to reverse engineer and copyright it, transforming the sacred mystery of existence into a proprietary algorithm. Zora's professional identity is dismantled layer by layer. Her reliance on technology, hierarchy, and predictable opposition proves catastrophic in an environment that rewards intuition, adaptability, and the humility to recognize one's own place in a food chain that has been redefined without human consultation. For Dr. Loomis, the island is a brutal and magnificent refutation of the fossil record's silence. He confronts the living behaviors, the social rituals, the conflict resolutions, the moments of play, that bones can never whisper, forcing a revolutionary, terrifying expansion of his entire scientific framework. The Delgado family's journey maps the instantaneous collapse of the social contract. The assumptions of safety, rescue, and legal recourse evaporate, leaving only the raw, pre-social negotiation of a family unit against a world that offers no rights, no arbitration, and no mercy beyond what they can carve out for themselves. Isabella's instinctual bond proposes a radical form of paleoethics. Her connection suggests morality might precede humanity, that an ethic of care can exist between species separated by eons, founded on a mutual recognition of vulnerability and the shared, fundamental condition of being alive. The cinematography frequently adopts a praise perspective, with shaky, handheld urgency and frames crowded by obstructing foliage. This visual language rejects omniscience, trapping the audience in the same limited, panicked sightlines as the characters, making every cleared sightline a relief and every new obstruction a potential death sentence. The sound design's sophistication lies in its manipulation of expectation. It leverages the human brain's pattern recognition to create false alarms. A branch crack that sounds like a footstep, a bird call that mimics a predator's cry, psychologically exhausting the audience and characters before the true threat even arrives. The hybrid's most tragic element is its profound dislocation. It is an orphan not just of species but of time itself, entity with no evolutionary past or ecological future. Its aggression is the fury of a ghost denied even a grave, a being that should not be and knows it on some cellular, tormented level. Krebs is defeated by the principle of emergence. He believes controlling the genetic code means controlling the organism, but life is an emergent phenomenon where the whole is infinitely greater and more unpredictable than the sum of its sequenced parts. His databases cannot model consciousness, fear, or territorial rage. Zora's arc culminates in the assumption of a new, unspoken responsibility: witness. Her final actions are not about victory, but about ensuring the truth of what happened. The greed, the suffering, the resilience survives the corporate spin machine. She becomes the keeper of a testament the world needs to hear. The Mosasaurus sequences exploit the horror of the vertical plane. The threat isn't just beside you. It's directly below in an abyssal column. This transforms the ocean's surface from a haven into a terrifyingly thin membrane, emphasizing that in this domain, humanity hangs suspended above an infinite, hungry darkness. Loomis achieves a painful synthesis. He must merge his romanticized vision of the past with the brutal reality of the present, understanding that the majesty of these creatures is inextricable from their lethal, amoral power. He learns to hold wonder and terror in each hand, without letting either cancel the other out. The production design's genius is in showing the laboratory's infrastructure failing in stages. Power grids flickering, containment seals weeping fluid, automated systems repeating error messages to empty halls. It's a death by 1,000 technical failures, a slow-motion autopsy of technological hubris. The film restores the dinosaurs' rightful status as animals, not archetypes. They fatigue, they get distracted, they fail in hunts. This animalistic realism prevents them from becoming supernatural monsters and instead frames them as formidable, but fallible, inhabitants of a world we are poorly equipped to navigate. Isabella's small dinosaur may act as an unwitting ecological mediator. Its acceptance of her could subtly alter the scent profile of the human group, causing confusion or hesitation in predators that rely on chemical cues, granting them a fleeting, invisible shield born from cross-species trust. The lighting in the hybrid's lair should be unnatural, perhaps the cold glow of surviving UV growth lamps or the pulsating light of corrupted bioluminescent fungi. This creates a visual hellscape, a corner of the island where the very light is poisoned by the same genetic tampering that created its occupant. Krebs's appropriate end is to be trapped in a paradox of his own making. Legally liable for the destruction of assets he sent into an unpredictable environment, his insurance voided by acts of God he himself set in motion. He is consumed not by teeth, but by the fine print of the contractual world he mastered. The survivors suffer a form of temporal PTSD. The modern world's constant, low-grade stimulation will feel like a bizarre lie. They have touched a reality where consequences are immediate and fatal, and the cushion of civilization will now feel like a suffocating, dishonest barrier to the truth of existence. The film posits that sustainable coexistence requires the creation of new taboos. Not fences, but sacred, inviolable spaces. Not control, but forbidden zones where human entry is understood as a profound transgression. It argues for a cultural, not just a physical boundary. The score could feature diegetic music that turns sinister, like a distorted, slowed-down version of a classic Jurassic Park theme emanating from a broken lab speaker. This would create a deeply unsettling sense of legacy corrupted, of nostalgic innocence warped by time and consequence into a funeral dirge. Technology's failure is depicted as a form of natural selection. The gadgets that survive are the simple, robust ones: a knife, a compass, a waterproof jacket. The complex, interconnected systems die first, illustrating an evolutionary pressure against overspecialization and fragility in a hostile environment. The Zora-Duncan relationship is the story's emotional plumb line. In a world of shifting loyalties and primal fear, their mutual, unshakable commitment is the one fixed point. It argues that deep, pre-existing bonds are the ultimate survival tool, more reliable than any weapon or piece of technology. The titanosaur is a narrative device for teaching scale. Its movements create opportunities and disasters. A fallen tree becomes a bridge, a crushed valley becomes a lake. The characters must learn to read its impacts as geological events, adapting their route to the wake of a living, walking force of nature. The film meticulously charts the psychological erosion of the hunter's advantage. The humans enter believing themselves to be the apex predators, the armed collectors. The island systematically inverts this, forcing them into the psychology of prey. Hypervigilance, constant retreat, and the abandonment of goal-oriented thought for pure situational reaction. Loomis might be forced to sacrifice a purely scientific opportunity, like leaving behind a unique, recording device filled with behavioral data, to carry a wounded companion. This choice cements his transformation from an observer of life to a participant in its messy, compassionate, and costly realities. The aesthetic conflict is between the straight line and the curve. The lab is all harsh angles and planned sightlines. The jungle is all curves, arcs, and chaotic tangles. The film's visual narrative shows the curves inevitably engulfing the lines, a testament to the superior adaptive strategy of organic, nonlinear design. The extraction team's internal devolution reveals the fragility of professional camaraderie. Under extreme duress, identity reverts to its core components: the coward, the opportunist, the loyalist, the pragmatist. Their story is a harsh lesson that shared purpose is a weak glue compared to shared humanity. Isabella's experience implants a different cognitive map. While the adults see a landscape of threats and resources, she perceives a landscape of individuals and potential relationships. Her memory of the island is not one of fear, but of a forbidden conversation with another kind of mind. Edwards uses reflective surfaces, water pools, broken monitor glass, polished lab floors, to distort and multiply the image of the dinosaurs. This technique visually represents their ubiquity and the distorted perception of them, suggesting they are everywhere and are never quite seen truly, only in fragments and frightening reflections. The hybrid's eradication should bring a palpable shift to the island's atmosphere. The unnatural tension dissipates, the natural sounds return with a different tenor. Its death is less a victory and more a purification, allowing the genuine, ancient rhythms of the ecosystem to reestablish their rightful, balanced dominance. The narrative's tempo respects the physical and emotional toll. After a major encounter, characters are shown exhausted, trembling, and struggling to process loss. This rhythmic ebb and flow of action and recovery grounds the spectacle in a credible human physiology and psychology. Krebs's language is that of a closed system, a self-referential corporate lexicon designed to obscure reality. The film's visceral sensory storytelling is the antidote to this poison, using image and sound to scream the truths his language seeks to sanitize: pain, fear, beauty, and death. The central, recurring ruin is the breached viewing gallery. This symbol of passive, safe observation now stands open to the elements, its chairs occupied by vines and its screens starred by impacts. It is the ultimate testament to the failure of the spectator model when faced with the demanding reality of the observed. Rebirth wrestles with the guilt of the creator. By birthing these creatures into a world not theirs, humanity has committed a profound act of existential violence. The dinosaurs' struggle is, in part, a struggle for ontological footing, a search for a purpose in a narrative they never asked to be written into. The final, indelible image is of the island at dawn, mist rising from valleys where dinosaurs call to one another. No human structures are visible. It is a world that has healed its human wound, a portrait of life persevering in defiant, magnificent indifference to the architects of its second chance. It is a beginning, not an end. The film's narrative is a profound meditation on the concept of rightful place, questioning whether any species, resurrected or otherwise, can claim such a thing in a world fundamentally altered by human history. The island becomes a tragic experiment in forced relocation, mirroring humanity's own history of ecological displacement on a grand prehistoric scale. Edwards demonstrates a mastery of behavioral ecology on screen, depicting intricate dinosaur interactions that extend beyond predation. Scenes of allopreening, juvenile play, or complex herd migration patterns establish a rich social tapestry, arguing for a depth of dinosaurian experience that pure fossil science could never fully apprehend. Krebs's worldview is a form of temporal colonialism, seeking to plunder not just resources but epochs. His company operates as a mining concern for deep time, extracting genetic material from the Cretaceous as if it were oil or precious metal, demonstrating a complete moral failure to distinguish between inorganic matter and the essence of life. Zora's deconstruction is a step-by-step unmaking of the modern soldier. The island invalidates her understanding of terrain, threat assessment, and engagement rules, forcing her to reconstruct a new operational doctrine from first principles. Observation, silence, and a respect for power dynamics she is no longer at the top of. Dr. Loomis is granted the terrible privilege of seeing his life's work become immediately, dangerously obsolete. Each living dinosaur is a walking critique of paleontological models, their flesh and behavior contradicting textbook diagrams and forcing a thrilling, humbling, continuous state of scientific revision in the field. The Delgado family's plight illustrates the violent dissolution of the human exceptionalism narrative. Their boat, a symbol of human exploration and leisure, is reduced to splinters by a force that does not recognize their sovereignty, their technology, or their right to passage, reasserting a more ancient law of the sea and land. Isabella's intuitive relationship with the small dinosaur models a post-human form of kinship. It bypasses the intellectual frameworks of science and the exploitative frameworks of commerce, suggesting that emotional resonance can be a viable, nonverbal bridge across vast evolutionary chasms, built on shared vulnerability rather than understood biology. The director's visual strategy includes prolonged wide shots where humans are rendered as insignificant, moving specks within a vast, indifferent landscape. This deliberate reduction in human scale visually reinforces the thematic core. Humanity is a recent, and not particularly significant, arrival in this ancient drama. The auditory design weaponizes familiarity. It takes the comforting sounds of a jungle, dripping water, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and twists them into an orchestra of ambush. The audience, like the characters, is trained to distrust the very soundscape, to hear peace as a prelude to attack. The hybrid's existential tragedy is compounded by its likely lack of a species-specific behavioral repertoire. It may not know how to court, how to rear young, or how to interact with its own kind, making it a profoundly lonely entity whose rage is that of a being utterly alienated from any possible community. Krebs is philosophically bankrupt because he confuses sequencing with understanding. He believes mapping a genome is akin to reading a creature's soul, a catastrophic error of reductionist thinking that leaves him utterly unprepared for the chaotic, emergent reality of consciousness, emotion, and wildness. Zora's journey ends not with a trophy, but with a burden of testimony. She becomes the reluctant chronicler of a truth the corporate world will seek to suppress: that the island's value lies not in what can be taken from it, but in its sheer, defiant existence as a place where human rules do not apply. The horror of the Mosasaurus sequences is rooted in a violation of medium. Humans are air breathers in a liquid world, clumsy and blind. The creature's attacks are not just physical but epistemological, asserting the absolute sovereignty of its aquatic domain and the irrelevance of human terrestrial primacy. Loomis is transformed from an academic into a shaman of sorts, the only one who can interpret the signs and portents of this living world. His knowledge becomes a form of divination, reading tracks, scat, and vocalizations to navigate a landscape that communicates in a language of warning and opportunity. The decaying laboratory is a museum of dead intentions. Its whiteboards still bear optimistic equations and project timelines, now scribbled over by mold and water stains. This visual irony screams of the gap between theoretical ambition in a sterile room and the uncontrollable reality of biological systems in the wild. The film diligently reanimalizes its dinosaurs, showing them as creatures of need, not narrative convenience. A predator might abandon a chase due to injury or overheating. A herbivore herd might stampede for reasons unrelated to the humans. They have their own agendas, making them unpredictable in the truest sense. Isabella's companion could provide a crucial, instinctive understanding of the island's microgeography, leading her to hidden water sources or edible plants known to its species. This positions the dinosaur not as a pet, but as an indigenous guide to a world where human survival knowledge is worthless. The visual treatment of the hybrid should induce a sense of the uncanny valley. Its proportions might be slightly off, its movements possessing a hesitant mechanistic quality. It feels wrong because it is a creature of design, not descent, and the audience's visceral unease mirrors the natural world's rejection of it. Krebs's defeat is administrative and absolute. His project is not simply stopped. It is defunded, its data corrupted, and its legal foundations challenged by the very clauses meant to protect it. He is outmaneuvered by the bureaucracy he sought to exploit, a fittingly hollow end for a hollow man. The survivors inherit a form of ontological vertigo. The certainties of the human world, progress, safety, separation from nature, now feel like a collective fiction. They have touched the real, a world of tooth and claw and immediate consequence, and can never fully return to the comforting illusion. Rebirth advocates for a philosophy of informed retreat. Coexistence, it suggests, might not mean sharing space, but knowingly and willingly ceding territory. It proposes a future defined not by expansion, but by a conscious, respectful contraction of the human domain to create inviolable wild spaces. The musical score could incorporate the sounds of the island itself as instrumentation. Rocks struck together, wind through specific rock formations, the low-frequency pulses of dinosaur calls. This would weave the environment directly into the film's emotional fabric, making the setting itself the composer. Technology is portrayed as a source of dangerous arrogance. Its glowing screens ruin night vision, its electronic noises mimic prey, and its very presence encourages a reliance that becomes fatal when it fails. The characters' progression is marked by their gradual, willing abandonment of these technological crutches. The bond between Zora and Duncan is the narrative's ethical anchor. In a story filled with moral compromises and betrayals, their loyalty is non-negotiable. It stands as a quiet argument that certain human bonds, forged in shared experience and trust, are the ultimate and perhaps only meaningful inheritance. The Titanosaur is treated as a roving, biological landmark. The characters do not confront it. They use its passage to mask their own sounds, or they wait patiently for it to clear a path. It is a lesson in patience and perspective, a living lesson in the art of navigating a world of greater powers. The film expertly maps the psychological transition from actor to reactor. The human characters arrive with a plan, a goal. The island systematically replaces goal-oriented action with pure, instinctive reaction, reducing human consciousness to its most ancient, survival-focused core, a humbling evolutionary regression. Loomis may be forced to choose between preserving a scientific revelation and preserving a life, destroying a unique sample to create a distraction or save a companion. This ultimate ethical test severs his last tie to pure academia, marrying his knowledge irrevocably to the messy, compassionate imperative of the present moment. The production design's central visual thesis is the consumption of the artificial by the organic. Computer servers sprout fungi, command chairs become nesting sites, and asphalt is split by determined routes. It is a relentless frame-by-frame argument that biology is the ultimate, most patient, and most powerful technology. The extraction team's fragmentation is a forensic study of stress pathology. Under the immense pressure of the island, personalities fracture along their fault lines. The team becomes a petri dish for human behavior under existential threat, with altruism, cowardice, and opportunism blooming in unpredictable patterns. Isabella's legacy is the implantation of a new moral instinct. She leaves the island having practiced a form of interspecies ethics based on mutual recognition, not utility. While the adults carry trauma, she carries a paradigm, a nascent blueprint for a relationship with the non-human world not rooted in fear or greed. Edwards employs the camera to simulate a predatory, patient gaze. Slow zooms into dense foliage, or static shots holding on a seemingly empty clearing, train the audience to scan for danger, to participate in the hunt. This creates an active, uncomfortable viewing experience, breaking the passive spectator contract. The hybrid's elimination should be portrayed as an ecological release. The unnatural tension it radiated dissipates. The natural dinosaurs vocalize differently, perhaps with relief. Its death is not a celebratory kill, but the removal of a toxic stressor, allowing the island's true, ancient equilibrium to sigh back into place. The film's narrative rhythm is a deliberate sine wave of tension and exhaustion. It understands that sustained terror is numbing, and so it allows its characters, and its audience, to crash after each set piece, to feel the draining aftermath of adrenaline, making the next threat feel even more insurmountable. Krebs's corporate dialect is a language of abstraction, designed to sanitize reality. The film's power is its brutal, sensory concretization. It translates his asset retrieval into the scream of a creature being tagged, his containment breach into the splintering of steel and the thunder of escaping titans. The film's most potent symbol is the repurposed tool. A scientific scalpel used to dig for roots, a satellite phone used as a blunt weapon. These objects tell a story of adaptation, of human ingenuity being stripped of its original, hubristic purpose and forced into the service of bare, pragmatic survival. Rebirth questions the morality of memory made flesh. Is it ethical to re-embody a past that cannot consent to its own resurrection? The film suggests that in doing so, we have created beings burdened with historical phantom limb syndrome, forever sensing the absence of the world they were designed for. The final, breathtaking image is of the island under a star-filled sky, the calls of dinosaurs echoing under ancient constellations. It is a vision of a complete world, a biosphere that has absorbed the human intrusion and continued its own saga. It is a testament to life's tenacity, a monument to a time before and after us.